Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. Today we will be making an angel that you can incorporate into your decor all year round. You might want to hang her in your mudroom or your laundry room or your closet. She's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make this large decorator angel, I'm going to start with a jelly roll of this Rifle Paper Company fabric collection. This one's called Wildwood. As far as I can tell, there are at least 3 Rifle Paper collections that are available in consumer fabrics. And there's one called Primavera and one called Garden Party. This one is Wildwood, and this is the one that I have and the one that I'll be using today. I feel like this fabric here on the outside is kind of like the theme, the hero. So I'm pretty sure I want to use that one. I'm going to select 5 fabrics. I'll probably go from lightest to darkest. I might go from dark to light, but I'm going to select 5 fabrics from this collection. Here are the fabrics that I've chosen. I'm going to run each one of these fabrics through my ruffler to gather them up. It's actually more of a pleating, and I'm going to set it on 6. If you don't have a Bernina, I'm sure your machine has something very similar. And I do have a video with instructions for how to use this. So I'm going to gather all these up and I'll be right back. Here are my ruffles. This is going to be the dress. And I'm doing 5 layers, but of course you could make as many layers as you like, and you could use any fabric collection that you like. I've kind of measured and calculated, and I've determined that if I start at the top with about 6 inches of this ruffle, and I see how I stretch out the bottom edge, and that's obviously longer than the top. So then I'm going to add this one to the top and then keep going, that by the time I get to the bottom, I'm going to use almost all of this entire strip all the way to the end. So the bottom will be very full. And I'm pretty sure that if I start with 6 inches here at the top and just keep adding, I'm going to have a shape like a triangle shape, and that's what I want. So I'm going to cut this off right here. And then starting with this next one, I'm going to set this on top of the bottom edge, overlapping about 3/8 to 1/2 of an inch. And then I'm just going to straight stitch, top stitch this layer to layer to layer. So I'll trim that and then add the next one, trim that, add the next one. And I'll come back and show you each step as I complete it. Here are the first 2 layers. And I'm going to cut this one off and set that aside and go to the next layer, which will be this one. And I'm just overlapping and top stitching. I don't know if you can see that. I'm stitching actually above to sort of flatten the ruffles. And I'll just continue. I'll add this one and I'll be back. Here's the 3rd tier of ruffles. So I will go ahead and add the next ruffle, and this is the theme fabric. So I thought it would look good right here as the 4th piece, and then we'll let this navy sort of add a border to everything. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm afraid that this last piece might not be quite long enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out another one of these navy prints and pleat it up and add it to the end of this, just to be sure that I have enough length. Here we go. I gathered up a 2nd strip and attached it to the end of the first. So now I'm sure that I'll have enough to reach all the way to the end. So I'm going to stitch that and I will be right back. I'm glad I added a little more to this navy strip because look, I needed all of that. Now I'm going to match up the edges here and seam up the back. Here's the angel's dress, and I'm turning it to the right side. I'm using a 1.5 inch ball knob for her head. I've already made the face, and you can find the instructions for the Rick Rack Ruby face in my Focus on Faces video. I'm a little concerned that this might not go through this. Okay, it goes through. All right, we're safe. So I want to fill in the dress with tulle. So the dress is about 10 inches long. This is a 1.5 inch ball knob with a face, and this is a large barrel spool, 7/8 of an inch. I think it means 7/8 of an inch here. So anyway, I'm going to hot glue this spool to form her neck. I'm using a generous amount of glue. Try to get it centered. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to use this wide tool, this kind, and I'm going to cut 3 lengths, each one about 24 inches long, so 12 inches folded in half, and I'm going to cut 3 of those. I need a nice long piece of this crafty thread. It's heavy duty thread. I'm going to use a double strand of this thread. So each one of these pieces of tulle, I'm going to determine the center and sort of hold it right here at her neck. And I'm going to place these around 1, 2, 3. This is a little bit tricky. I always say that my projects are fun and easy, but I will admit this is a little bit tricky. So 1, 2, 3, like that. And then I'm going to secure this around her neck up high with the thread. She's like a ghost right now. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So it doesn't have to be exactly in the center because I have a generous length. So I'm tying that off nice and tight. And then I want to pull the thread up close to her chin, way up, like that. Then I'm going to fold these down. That's the idea. But first, I'm going to go up and squeeze out some hot glue right along here, like that. And then I'll pull these down. Now the idea is that this tulle will fill in the dress. And I already checked to make sure that this head will go through the opening, and it will. But I still need to gather it. You can see it's a little bit, a little too big just to kind of push in here. So I'm going to get a needle and thread, and I'm going to gather up around the neck. This is also that heavy duty thread, and I've doubled it. I put a knot in the end, and I'm using my thimble. So I'm going to find the seam, the back seam. I'm going to start right there by securing my thread into the seam allowance right here. And then I'm going to gather this up just so I can tighten it around her neck. I'm sewing in between. The stitching from the gathers is right here and the top is here. I'm about halfway between the stitching and the top. That looks good. So now I will send this through, making sure I've got the seam at the back center. Then I'll pull those gathers tight. I'm still going to put a little collar around her neck, but I do want that up pretty high, so there's not a lot of gap. Then I'm going to wrap, and that's just below the lip of the spool. See the lip of the spool right there? And then in the back, I will secure my thread and tie it off. There's the back center right there. And now I'm going to lift this up and just squeeze out a little bit of glue in here to secure the dress. Just a little bit of glue so the dress stays in place nice and tight. That's so cute. Look how fun and full that is. So now, of course, I will trim out the petticoat. That looks good. Now we'll give her a little lace collar. Let's see what we have. I have two options. One is sort of a cream color, very vintage, and one is more of a white. And I think both of them would be great, but I'm gonna go with the white. It's just a nice contrast to the rest of the fabrics. This one I think might blend in too much. And then I've been staring at this button. It doesn't exactly match, but I just really like the look of it. So I think I'm going to do the lace collar, the button, and then a ribbon bow. So I'll take off about 24 to 30 inches for the collar. And I'll thread my needle with that heavy duty thread and gather that up. Okay, so now I'm just going to gather up that top edge. Little running stitch. This is 5/8 of an inch wide. I use this lace a lot. I really like it. But you don't have to be exactly 5/8. You could be 1/2 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever you like, whatever you have. It could be any color, just whatever you like. Okay, so this is all gathered up and I'm going to place it around her neck. I'm going to pull it all the way up and join the ends together and back and tie it off to secure. That's looking very cute. Now I'm going to tie a bow from this 1/16 inch satin ribbon and I'm going to glue it under the lace. Sometimes I like to glue the bow under the lace just so that it lays flatter against the fabric. I do like that button. Of course, you could add a flower or a charm or any kind of little doodad there. Okay, about like that. So I have 3 4x6 inch index cards and this Red Heart Dreamy, I think it's acrylic, 100% acrylic yarn. It's a little bit fuzzy and it's a little bit, it's a good scale for the size of the project. So I'm going to wrap this about 40 times across the long way of the card. I will go over to my sewing machine and stitch down and back right through the center. Here's the little, the yarn wig that's sewn down the center. Now I will tear out these index cards. Let's make sure this is long enough to go all the way around. Looks perfect. All right, so now I will squeeze out some hot glue along the top of her head like a hairband. I'm actually using a generous amount of glue for this. I'll pull this forward a little bit. That looks good. Okay. And then around the back to the bottom, right here to here. Again, I'm using a generous amount of glue. That looks good. There we go. Now I'm going to wrap and tie off her hair into a little top knot. And pull that nice and tight. I actually have a needle on here, so I can just use that. And pull that nice and tight. Try to get it very tight. Okay. Now the reason that I like to use a generous amount of glue. Here's how it looks in the back. It looks nice in the back. A generous amount of glue and pulling this really tight is because this right here is going to have to support the entire weight of the angel. Not like she's heavy, she's really pretty light, but so I'm adding a hanging loop right here, and I'm making sure that I get very low so that it's embedded in a lot of that yarn. And I also kind of like if I can feel it going through some glue, but in this case I'm not feeling any, but I think she'll be okay because I know this is tight and there's a lot of yarn there and the yarn is glued securely. I'm going to put a fairly long hanging loop. Here we go. You can always cut it shorter. Okay, now let's add a halo. I have 20 gauge wire cutters, and this needs to be kind of big, bigger than usual. If you watched any of my other angel videos, I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger since she is a bigger figure, a bigger angel. That might be too big, but let's see. I think that's just fine. So I'm going to squeeze out some glue right here and press that into the top center of her hairstyle. I'm going to press that in, kind of squeeze it. And then I want to add a little embellishment right here. I have a couple of options. This is what I was looking for. There are all sorts of options. Pink roses, flowers, yellow roses, white roses, all sorts of options. But I just like this sort of blush color. This is a hydrangea type flower. Let's see. I just like the color. It matches, sort of matches this color in the first tier of her outfit. So I'm going to add some hot glue here to the stem and just press it in. This is, I can tell it's like a paper. Sort of a paper hydrangea. That looks good. Now for her wings. I went to my local paper source and I bought some rifle wrapping paper. And I felt it and it felt really thick. And then when I got home, I realized there were 3 sheets and I was feeling the thickness of 3 sheets. So I'm going to use a glue stick and just stick this onto the, this is just a piece of scrapbook paper. You know, it's kind of like cardstock. And I think that'll be just fine. I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine with this scallop circle, which is my favorite for wings. But of course, you can just cut out a circle. Let's see how big it is. So it's about 6 inches, a little bit more than 6 inches, but 6 inches would work. I like this because it's dark, and I think it's going to be a really nice contrast because her hair is so light and her face in the upper part of the project is very light, and so I think this is going to give a nice contrast as well as a different scale. So I'm going to run this through the cutter, and I'll be right back. Here's the wing piece. I'm going to fold it in half and I'll take it over to my sewing machine and I'm going to zigzag around the edge. I'm going to squeeze out some hot glue right here and then I'm going to press it into the back of her head. I've definitely used a generous amount of glue and I'm going to hold it for a second until I know that it's completely secure. I hope you can see all the potential in this design. You could make this with any set of jelly roll strips, and you could make an angel for your home for any holiday, any occasion, for Christmas. You could vary the color of hair, you know, to match your daughter or your granddaughter. It really wasn't very hard to make. It was kind of fun and easy. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.